How's it going on this glorious Tuesday? Hopefully, everyone's having an awesome day. But today, we're going to be talking about immigration and Texas new law and groups that are suing to say it's unconstitutional because Obama versus Arizona back in 2011, I believe. But let's go to ground news. Groups sue over new Texas law that lets police arrest migrants who enter the U.S. illegally. So you pretty much have groups trying to prevent Texas from arresting people that commit crimes. That's really at the core of it. I know it's a lot more nuanced than that, but that's pretty much what the gist is. Civil rights organizations have filed lawsuits challenging new Texas laws that allow police to arrest migrants who cross the border illegally. The measure is set to take effect in March and is being challenged as unconstitutional due to Federal Immigration Authority. Texas Civil Rights Project and the American Civil Liberty Unions have filed the lawsuit on behalf of El Paso County and two immigrant aid groups. They seek the prevention of the enforcement of the measure known as SB 4 and declare it unlawful. Opponents of the law argue that it overrides constitutional principles, flouts federal immigration law, and harms communities. Kind of like how illegal immigration is harming communities, how the flow of the border of illegal immigrants are flooding the southern border, overrunning the communities that are there. Then you have the El Paso, you have the state of Texas, you have the federal government flying these people to places like New York and Chicago, causing havoc onto their systems. You mean like those type of harms to the community, or just harms to the illegal immigrants? Like I said, there's a lot of nuances into this. The ACO has issued a travel advisory warning for possible civil rights violations in Texas. Whenever they don't get their way, they issue a civil rights violation. Abortion ban in Texas. Possible civil rights violations in Texas. Voter rights. Our new voter law to ensure that we have integrity in our laws. Travel advisory warning of possible civil rights in violation in Texas. Those are some things that the ACL has issued. Now, you may agree or disagree with me. That's perfectly fine. The ACL has doesn't have a really good track record when it comes to me. Let's put it that way. But of course, we're going to go to San Antonio Report. This is a centered bias, according to Ground.News. This was written by Uriel J. Garcia, the Texas Tribune, which is definitely left-leaning. So this is an aggregate. Gotcha, you're an aggregate. Is there another one that's not an aggregate? What about you? Is this the AP? Yeah, it's the AP. It doesn't really matter. Texas Tribune is going to be it, but it doesn't mean I'm going to give you the view. It's going to be through the San Antonio Report. Immigrant rights groups sue Texas to halt new law allowing arrest of migrants. It should say illegal immigration or illegal aliens, illegal migrants. But you know, they're trying to drive home that Texas is anti-migrants, anti-immigration. Immigrant rights organizations have sued Texas after Governor Abbott approved one of the strictest state immigration enforcement laws, which authorizes the police to arrest immigrants suspected of crossing the border legally. In their lawsuit, the American Civil Liberties Union and the Texas Right Project claimed that Senate Bill 4, which Abbott signed on Monday, is scheduled to take effect March 5th, violates the U.S. Constitution because Congress has given the federal government sole authority over immigration enforcement. Once again, the Congress cannot give the federal government sole authority over the immigration. There's forget which amendment it is, but it says anything that not listed in the Constitution and Bill of Rights is now on to the state level. Just because the federal government passes a law to give them more power doesn't mean they actually have the authority to do so. And I don't think immigration was part of that as well. So there may be that, but I do know people ignore that amendment. I forget which one it is. I think it's the Ninth Amendment. I may be wrong on the number, but let's see. Groups filed a lawsuit. A lawsuit filed Tuesday in Austin federal court. So of course, since it's going to be in Austin federal court, it's going to be a loss for Greg Abbott, and Greg Abbott is going to appeal the decision, and that's where the real fun begins. I'm just calling that Abbott's going to lose in the Austin federal court. It says SB will prevent immigrants from requesting asylums in the U.S., a right that they have regardless of how they enter the country. So here's the thing. That's one thing that we definitely do need to change our laws in. If they illegally cross into our border, they have no right to request asylum. I mean, I get under the current law, it doesn't matter how they come in, they have the right to request that. But if they break the law, they should forfeit their right to asylum, even if they actually are a legit case. Groups filed a lawsuit on behalf of El Paso County and two immigrants' rights organization, El Paso-based Las Americas Immigration Advocacy Center and the Austin-based American Gateways. The group is asking the federal judge to prevent Texas from implementing the SB 4 and declare it unlawful. The name Steve McCraw, the director of the Department of Public Safety, and Bill Hicks, El Paso District Attorney, as defendants. Greg Abbott's effort to circumvent the federal immigration system to deny the people the right to due process is not only unconstitutional, but it's also dangerous, prone to error, and will disproportionately harm black and brown people regardless of their immigration status. Most of the makeup of southern Texas is brown and black, well, mostly brown people, mostly Hispanic people. So you're going to have Hispanics arresting other Hispanics. And let's see here, said Anil Blackrashinan, senior staff attorney of the ACL Immigrant Rights Project, we're using every tool at our disposal, including litigation, to stop this egregious law from going into effect. Abbott and the state rep David Spiller are Jacksboro, a sponsor of legislation, defended the new state law, saying that the Biden administration immigration policies have created a crisis that the state has to address. I've been asking this question and no one's been able to answer this question. They just ignore it. What should the state of Texas or any border state do when the federal government fails to uphold their end of the deal when it comes to immigration? I would like an answer. Abbott said that the law would deter. Let's see here. SB 4 is the Texas solution to a Texas problem. It's humane, logical, effective approach to the problem and created and fostered by the Biden administration's continued failure and refusal to secure our border, Spiller said. Abbott said that the new law will deter immigrants from crossing illegally into Texas. The consequences of it are extreme, that people are being smuggled by the cartels. They will not want to come to the state of Texas, Abbott said on Monday during the bill signing events in Brownsville. Mexican President Andres Manuel Lopez Obrador said Texas on Tuesday criticized Abbott, saying the government will challenge the law. How about you protect your southern border, Mr. President of Mexico? If you were protecting your southern border, Texas wouldn't have to pass this law now. With those policies, he wants to win popularity and says he's not going to win anything. On the contrary, he'll lose. See here, neither Biden nor the U.S. Department of Justice have publicly commented on Texas law, but the White House spokesperson said in the statement that SB 4 is an extreme law that would make communities in Texas less safe. How would they make them less safe? By giving the police the opportunity to remove criminals that have broke the law by coming into the state of Texas. Removing criminals from communities make communities safer. Generally speaking, federal government, not individual states, is in charge with determining how and when to remove non-citizens for violating immigration law, the spokesperson said. The new law will make it a state crime to cross the Texas-Mexico border between ports of entry. Police who suspect that a person crossed the border illegally can arrest them and charge them with a Class B misdemeanor, which carries a punishment up to 6 months in jail. Repeat offenders can face a second-degree felony with a punishment up to 2 to 20 years in prison. The law also allows the judge to drop the charges if the migrant agrees to return to Mexico. Migrants who decline to return immediately to Mexico would serve their sentence and then be transported by the police to the port of entry, and then they could face a felony charge for refusing to return to Mexico at that point. So here's the other issue I have with this particular bill. Return to Mexico. You're forcing Mexico to accept illegal immigration from the United States, regardless of if that person is from Mexico or not. States have countries have the opportunity to decline such transfer, and Mexico could play that card saying, we're not going to accept this migrant because he's not a documented citizen of Mexico, nor do we claim that he is a Mexican. So that may be a crux of the issue. I'm just guessing, but that's up for the courts to decide. That's up for Mexico to decide. Federal courts, including the U.S. Supreme Court, have ruled that immigration laws can only be enforced by federal government. In 2010, Arizona lawmakers passed Senate Bill 1070, which made it a state crime for legal immigrants not to carry their immigration papers, requiring the police to investigate immigration status of any person they come in contact with. In a landmark case, 2012 case, U.S. Supreme Court ruled that the local police do not have the authority to arrest someone solely based on their immigration status, and said that the responsibility is for the federal government. A little bit more context here. U.S. Supreme Court Monday struck down, this is from CNN, Supreme Court mostly rejects Arizona immigration law. Governor says the heart remains. From Tom Cohen and Bill Myers, CNN. Let's see here. Updated 11:21 a.m. Eastern Time, Tuesday, June 26, 2012. The Supreme Court on Monday struck down the key parts of a Arizona law that sought to deter illegal immigration, but let stand the controversial provision allowing police to check a person's immigration status while enforcing other laws. The decision, sure to ripple across the political landscapes in the presidential election year, the court's 3-5 ruling upheld the authority of the federal government to set immigration policies and law. The national government has significant power to regulate immigration, just as Anthony Kennedy wrote. In a major opinion, Arizona may have understandable frustrations with the problems caused by illegal immigration. While that process continues, the state may not pursue policies that undermine federal laws. So here's the thing. Does Texas law undermine federal laws, or does it add to the law? Is it what? So best way I can describe it, when I was in the military, you'll have a military rule, a military law. The division can add to that law. Then you have battalions that could add a little bit more to that ruling. And then you have companies that could add a little bit more to it. As long as the original rule is being applied, they could add things onto it that doesn't undermine it. So the question is, does Texas law undermine federal law? And this is where it's going to have either the standing or no standing. That's where the courts are going to have to decide, does this law undermine federal law? The Supreme Court didn't prevent the police in Arizona for checking a person's immigration status. But I guess the question is, does arresting them and charging them undermine federal law? I don't know. And I keep on asking the same question. Let's hear. While concluding that the federal government has the power to block the law, the court let Stand 1, the most controversial part provision that lets police to check the person's immigration status while enforcing other laws if reasonably suspicious or suspicion exists the person that the person is in the United States illegally. Critics said that the law opens the door to racial profiling. Their basic uncertainty about the law that means that how it will be enforced. Kennedy wrote, making it clear that Arizona authorities must comply with the federal laws, conducting an immigration status check, or face further constitutional challenges. So it seems like it wasn't completely neutered. That's where it says the heart is still in it. I'm not going to continue with this because this is old news. But I'm saying this is going to be a case that's going to be referenced on the federal side, or even from the not the defendants, but the people suing the state of Texas over this law. They're going to cite that this Supreme Court saying that the federal government is the sole responsibility of immigration and enforcement of immigration laws. But I get back to the question, what should states do when the federal government fails to uphold their end of the deal? Like immigration. Immigration is an issue. The federal government is letting all these people in. Some states will see that as a failure of them to uphold current immigration law. So what rights do states have when those are not being enforced? No one's been able to answer that question, nor has anyone been able to answer the question, how are current immigration laws broken? They say that they're broken and annotated, but they don't offer any examples on how they're broken. So if anyone could explain those two questions to me or have an answer to those two questions, leave them in the comment down below. But most importantly, have yourself a wonderful day, morning, or evening.